why don't we bring in a Democratic leader, Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. He's a member of the Judiciary Committee and the Foreign Relations Committee as well. Senator, it's always great talking to you. I have so much that we want to get to, but why don't we just start with that question right now? A lot of people saying, oh, they want to censure these two senators. They want to run primary challengers against these two senators. It's kind of hard running as a Democrat in this environment in West Virginia or Maricopa County. How do you sort through the competing balances here, the competing instincts of Democrats?
Well, two things. One, we've got 9 months until a midterm election, then 2 more years until 2024 when they're both up. We've got to really focus on the problems we have right now. I disagree with them fundamentally on how they're thinking we should meet this crisis with this voter suppression. But they are friends of mine. They've been incredible partners in the American Rescue Plan and the bipartisan infrastructure plan. They voted with Biden more than 96% of the time. And so my focus right now is meeting the crises of the moment, from the expenses going up, as you guys have been covering, to, frankly, the reality we have in America right now, where in states like Georgia and Texas, Latinos, blacks are having to wait 4, 5, 10 times longer in lines to vote than folks that live in wealthier or predominantly white communities. That's a real crisis in this country. We've got to find a way to be who we say we are, a nation where everyone has equal access to the polls.
Yeah, I'm wondering what your thought is about this bipartisan effort to pass the Electoral Count Act reforms that would stop Republicans or Democrats in the future, anybody, from claiming that they can decide what votes to accept and what votes to throw out. We sort of, as you know, because you were there, it's one of the ways that Donald Trump attempted to overthrow the last election. What are your thoughts on that bipartisan plan?
Look, we need it, and we've got to do it. But I hope that that's not going to diffuse the urgency of the moment, where you have states like Montana that have passed laws that are going to make it extraordinarily more difficult for Native Americans to vote. You have a guy like John Tester that the laws are passing to make it harder for students to vote, for Native American votes. Well, this is a guy that's won elections by a few thousand votes, and this is rigging the system. So, yeah, we need to count the votes right, but if you rig the game, the scoreboard doesn't matter. We've got to find a way to make it a fair election, fair game.
Good morning, Senator. It's Willie Geist. Good to see you this morning. What is the future of that voting rights legislation that you want to get through, and so many Democrats and progressives in this country want to get through, but simply don't have the votes? The math is the math, and we found that out last week when you tried to get it through. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema not on board with that, or at least with getting the filibuster pushed to the side. So what is the path forward for so many people in this country who are very concerned about this issue? Is it, as Reverend Sharpton said earlier, picking apart the pieces of it that are popular, that you do have enough votes at this point to get through, and passing it piece by piece? Or do you still hold out some hope somehow, some way, that the larger legislation could get through?
Well, I think that if you break this out, pretty much all the pieces are supported by people on both sides of the aisle. And I think right now people don't understand when they hear the big name of the bill, but let's show them that this is about stopping gerrymandering that is ridiculous in this country. Republicans, Democrats know it's wrong. Let's talk about dark money and how we have billions of dollars being spent in our election with nobody knowing where that money's coming from. Let's put that Disclose Act up. So I'm very much in favor of parts of this bill. The one about Native American Bill of Rights when it comes to, or voting rights, is supported by at least one Senator Murkowski, so on the Republican side. So let's bring those forward. But and point out the hypocrisy of those who would be against such fair, just elections, and hopefully dramatize the larger hypocrisy is that all of these Republican legislatures, not one Democratic vote, who are passing these laws are doing it based upon a lie that is a cancer to our country. This idea that Donald Trump and others are spreading, that somehow there is widespread voter fraud in our country, when even his top officials say there is no justification for that claim, and therefore no justification for these laws that Republicans are doing. What's really happening in these states is they realize they cannot win fairly, so let's suppress students. Let's make it harder for low-income or minority people to vote. And this, again, is bigger than our partisan politics. It really is to the core, to the heart of our democracy, and we've got to be a better nation than this.
Senator Booker, good morning. It's John Lemire. Wanted to shift gears here. You obviously sit on the Foreign Relations Committee, and wanted to get your assessment of the situation along the Ukrainian-Russian border. 8,500 troops put on a heightened alert yesterday. Would you feel it would be appropriate to deploy those troops to Eastern Europe and the Baltic states?
Yeah, can I just draw a line first to tell you that these aren't not related? The Russians who are involved in a lot of this election misinformation, fueling these lies in our country, they are just trying to destabilize Western democracy. And they do not want Ukraine to be a westward-facing, free, independent democracy. They are in an active hybrid war already in Ukraine. Clearly, they've taken Crimea, and clearly they're trying to undermine the democracy there. So these are not unrelated. This global contest between authoritarian governments and free Western democracies. It's playing out here at our home. But I am, to your question, I am definitely not for deploying U.S. troops in Ukraine. We should not get involved in combat operations there. That said, we have a big stake in the outcome. And so we should be providing the Ukrainians, along with our NATO partners, resources to defend themselves. And I've joined with my senior senator, chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Menendez, in making sure that we are showing the Russians that if they do such a move, that there will be unprecedented bipartisan economic sanctions on their nation as well as their top officials in both business and the military.
Senator Cory Booker, thank you very much for being on the show.